So our sermon series is Moment. And I want you to sit in your seat here for just a second. And I want you to think, I want you to grab this in your mind right now. I want you to grab a defining moment in your life. Something that was life-changing for you. I want you to grab a hold of that. I want you to think about it. Are you there yet? Grab hold of that moment. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about moments. Defining moments and how we should live in those defining moments and some of the hardest moments in our lives. I want to tell you about a day I had this week that was full of defining moments. I got up early on Wednesday morning and I went to be with a lady who was dying of ovarian cancer. I left my house at about 6:30, got to her house. She's a pretty place, really rural, northeast Wilson County, and just prayed with her, talked to her family, prayed with them. And I knew that she didn't have long. And so at about 4:30 that same afternoon, I got a call from her son that saying she had taken her last breath. Defining moment. About 30 minutes later, I married a couple on Valentine's night. They wanted to get married. They come from two different countries. They had kind of met here in Nashville, and they wanted to get married on Valentine's Day. That's the life of a pastor right there. You kind of see the entire circle of life. You see a lot of defining moments. In fact, frankly, that's the privilege of being a pastor, is that families and people invite you into their lives and let them be, and you become a part of those defining moments in their lives. I'll tell you a little bit about some of my defining moments in life. When I was 10 years old, I went forward at Marston Heights Baptist Church in Clinton, Mississippi, and I went to see Pastor Charles Gentry, and I said, I want Jesus to save me. And so that was a defining moment. 8 years later, though, I was 18 years old. I was fresh off my freshman year at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, which is located in a little place called Perkinston, about an hour from the coast. They call it Perk. I came back home, I guess it was before the end of the semester, and I needed to come back home, and I talked to my pastor at that time. His name was Kermit McGregor, and I confessed to him that I'd just gotten myself trapped in pornography. And that, for the first time, when I was 10, I didn't really understand that I needed a Savior. But when you're 18 and you think you're all that, and then you come face to face with sin, and you realize that, your baseball's not going to save you, and nothing else is going to save you, that only Jesus can save you because you're a sinner who is totally depraved and needs grace. Man, so I went back to my pastor and told him all that, told my parents, and then I got baptized for the second time at 18. And I got baptized actually with the kids I used to coach on my Little League team. So there's this guy who's about 6 feet tall, and then there's all these little kids getting baptized. That was kind of a strange deal. But that was a defining moment in my life. I had a defining moment in 1984. That's when there was an Olympics going on then, too. It was in Los Angeles. It was in that summer. I was an intern at the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal in Tupelo, Mississippi, and there wasn't a heck of a whole lot going on in Tupelo, Mississippi, just telling you. I played semi-pro baseball for the Tupelo Tigers. I was one of 2 Caucasian people on that team. And I was just hanging out there in the summer, but a young lady came to visit me. Tammy and Lynn Holloway came to visit me. I had just gotten to know her on the Southern Mississippi campus when I was playing baseball and kind of going to school a little bit down there. And she came to see me that summer. She stayed with a friend of hers in Tupelo, and she hung out with me, went and watched me play baseball and all that kind of good stuff. But I took her to a movie in Oxford because there wasn't much happening in Tupelo at that time. We went to see Gremlins. You may know that movie, Gremlins? Went to see Gremlins at the movie theater in Oxford, where the University of Mississippi is. And so I'm riding back home that night with her, and she falls asleep on my shoulder. And by the way, we didn't, there weren't bucket seats and all that kind of stuff. I had an Oldsmobile Omega. Don't ever buy that car. If you ever see it wrecked or anywhere, do not buy that car for your kids. Do not drive one of those. But so she was leaning next to me. She was leaning on my shoulder, and she was asleep. And I remember the exact moment that I said, this is the woman I want to be with for the rest of my life. It came a little later for her. But we got married on August 10th, 1985 at a little church in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and that was a defining moment in my life. In 2008, on Easter Sunday, was an incredible defining moment in my life because the same lady who was then my wife, who became my wife, she was in the hospital for 9 days, and she was dying. She was bleeding out of her lung, and we didn't know why. She had a disease as a child that caused some decay in her lung, and she started bleeding out of it for no apparent reason at that particular time. But I remember being at the chapel at Summit Hospital right up here and begging for her life. Begging for her life because I thought that's how bad it was. Jesus stepped in and saved her. So I get to spend many more years with her, I hope. That was a defining moment in my life. I'm going to have another defining moment on Thursday. My oldest son, Spencer, is getting married in Miami to a young lady from South Africa that I think the world of. Her name is Jennifer, and that's going to be another defining moment. We have tons of defining moments in our lives, don't we? So what I want to do today is I want to kind of guide you. It's easy, I think, sometimes to think about, how I'm going to live when things are going well. But one of the most difficult things is to do the right thing, to live God's way, and to do it in a way that honors Him in the hardest moments in our life. So we're going to take a look at the life of Hannah in 1 Samuel. And I want to tell you that this is going to be kind of no holds barred. So if you're easily offended, you probably need to walk out now, okay? All right? We're going to pick up right where Phil left off last week, so just buckle up here. But we're going to talk a little bit about this. I want you to, if you would stand, we're going to read the first little bit of 1 Samuel, the first chapter. Thank you for standing with me. And here's what the Bible tells us. Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah got up and went to pray. Eli the priest was sitting in his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. Hannah was in deep anguish. I want you to know that I know some of you today are in deep anguish. You're there. Fortunately, God's there. And Hannah was there too, so we've got a guide about how to go forward with that. She was crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord, and she made this vow, "O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime, and as a sign that he has been dedicated to the Lord, his hair will never be cut." As she was praying to the Lord, Eli, who was the priest, watched her. Seeing her lips moving but hearing no sound, he thought she had been drinking. "Must you come here drunk?" he demanded. "Throw away your wine." "Oh, no, sir," she replied. "I haven't been drinking wine or anything stronger, but I am very discouraged, and I was pouring out my heart to the Lord. Don't think I am a wicked woman, for I have been praying out of great anguish and sorrow." "In that case," Eli said, "go in peace. May the God of Israel grant the request you have asked of him." "Oh, thank you, sir," Hannah exclaimed. Then she went back and began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. You may be seated. I want to give you 3 principles for thriving in the defining, hardest moments in your life and in the life of your family. And again, this is a family series, but if you're single, man, please don't tune me out, because all this I'm giving you is going to be applicable to your life as well. Principle number 1, write this stuff down. Embrace God's standard, especially in the hard moments. Embrace God's standard, especially in the hard moments. So let me tell you a little bit about this story, because I didn't give you the whole thing. Elkanah is a guy who's a godly man by all accounts. He is a part-time priest. He goes and serves in the temple about 20 miles north of there at a place called Shiloh, and he goes and serves there whenever there's a festival or a feast there. But Elkanah is kind of like a lot of us guys. Sometimes we make mistakes at the most important times in life. So Elkanah is married to a lady named Hannah. And Hannah's name means woman of grace. And you're going to see exactly how graceful and grace-filled she is as I tell you this story. So they're happily married. Everything's going along pretty well. There's a big problem, though. Hannah can't have children. And so Elkanah makes a really big mistake in his life. Things get a little tough. He gets a hard moment, and he decides, well, Hannah can't have children. I'm going to come up with a brilliant idea to add another wife to my household. So he marries a lady named Peninnah. And Peninnah has 5 children. And his life and his family's life and his household begins to unravel in an amazing way just because he made a very, very stupid decision. okay? So I want to stop here for just a second, make sure that we're all clear here on this standard here. God's standard has and always will be one man, one woman for a lifetime in marriage. Everybody got that? Elkanah just kind of forgot that. Now, you say, well, why, okay, so he's a priest. Why did that even happen in this time? All right, so in this time in history, God tolerated having multiple wives. He tolerated bigamy, okay? It's much the same way that he tolerates divorce in our time. He doesn't like it. It's not his standard, but he tolerates it. He gives people a way out. And why does he do that? God describes it this way. He says, because you are a stiff-necked people. God hates divorce. He hated bigamy, but he tolerated it because it was kind of a last resort. One man, one woman for a lifetime. Not same-sex marriage, not living together, not divorce for no good reason, just because you aren't getting along anymore. None of that's the standard. Elkanah, like most guys, decides to do something stupid, okay? I think I've probably said something like this before. So it's not really hard to think about, to understand his thought process, but he still just really makes a big decision that kind of almost destroys his family. He needed children. Back in this time, you needed children to work the farm. You needed hands, right? Also, it's a big deal because as a man in that time, and it still is today, you want children to carry on your family name, right? He needed help at the family farm. He wanted to carry on his name. And when Hannah couldn't have children, he panicked. Anybody in here panicked in that kind of situation? He panicked. He decided not to wait and decided not to trust God. He decided to take on another wife, and I'm pretty sure that there was constant tension and turmoil in his household from the day forward after he made that decision. I'm pretty sure he wished he had that one back. He tried to make it better, but nothing he tried worked. And so he said stupid things like this. This is in the Bible. Again, let me make sure you understand this. The Bible is not a record of perfect people. It's a record of God's standard, but when we do stupid things, it also shows us what happens when we don't follow God's standard. This is one of those places, okay? So he says this. This is brilliant right here. Why are you crying, Hannah? Elkanah would ask. Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons? What an idiot. I'm the whole package, baby. Don't worry about it. You got me. That's what he says. And you know what Hannah did not fire back at him. But what Hannah should have said was, the reason I'm unhappy and sad is because you married another woman just because I couldn't have children. And she is making my life a living hell. And you're having sex with her and having kids. So yeah, I'm not real happy right now. And you're not the total package. This sounds like real life, doesn't it? This sounds like real life in Wilson County, Tennessee, doesn't it? It does, yeah. So he's an idiot. So he does that. But the thing about Hannah was she didn't say a word. She was quiet. We're going to talk more about that later. So what can we learn and apply from this? Other than the fact it's bad to have more than one wife, which is kind of a no-brainer. Guys, I'm going to pick on you, men. You are the standard bearer for God in your household. You have got to be willing to stick to God's standard even in the hardest moments. And that's on you. Moms, it's on you too, but dads, it's really on you. This is what it means to lead. To hold to God's standards even in the hard moments. Okay, so what does that mean, Jim? Lay this out for me. Do you tell the truth in the hard moments? Do you uphold truth in your family in the hard moments? When you're doing your taxes and it says you owe $5,000, do you go in and fix something to make it look better? When hard things happen in your family, do you tell each other the truth? In friendships in your life, do you tell people the truth? Okay? Do you speak the truth in love? We're going to talk more about that later. Do you love people? Do you give your life away to other people? There's a whole list of God's standards, but you know what they are. You know what they are. No sex outside of marriage. Sex is not a recreation. It's not something you do just for fun. I'm going to pick on one thing here for just a second, and I hope you'll tolerate me for just a moment. Living together outside of marriage is not God's plan. It's just not. And there are probably people in here today, there are people that you know all over the place who have decided that they want to live together outside of marriage for a variety of reasons. The average price of an apartment in the Nashville area is $1,340 for a one-bedroom, okay? And there are a lot of people that say, you know what, I really care about this person, and so we're just going to live together because it's too expensive to do otherwise. This is not an economic decision. This is a spiritual decision. This is a decision you make in the hard moments to do the right thing, to uphold God's standard. And young ladies here and young men, I want you to listen to me really carefully, because your parents and people who are older than you are screwing this up. They're making the wrong decision. So I don't want you to misunderstand this, because we aren't doing a very good job of laying this out for you. Women, God's daughters, are not shoes to be tried on. Are we clear here? You're somebody's daughter. They're God's daughters. And guys, neither are you. You know, you're not supposed to be tried on by a young lady who wants to see, well, they're going to behave, or they're going to clean up after themselves, or are they going to cut the grass, or are they going to do laundry? No. You don't try people out. You make a commitment before God to stay with them in sickness and health till death do you part, and neither one of you are perfect. All of us are sinful, but you don't try people on. You don't try out marriage. It's a right or wrong thing. It's a God standard kind of thing. And will you do me a favor? Will you always remember that? If there's a guy that asks you to live with him, would you tell him, I'm not a shoe? You don't try me on. You don't do that. Sex is not a recreational activity. It's not something you do like going water skiing. It's not that thing. It's a binding spiritual commitment between one man and one woman. That's what it is. And don't let anybody tell you anything differently. Because I'll tell you, if you get this stuff out of order and you don't do it the right way, you will live your whole life regretting it. Ask somebody. Ask somebody who's taken that road. A lot of people, a lot of ladies who decide they want to live with a guy wind up in a trailer park with a black eye. I'm just telling you, this is where you're going. Uphold God's standard in your life. For real. And while we're talking about hard things, let's talk about one other hard thing. This is the Word of God. If you are a follower of Jesus, you live according to this book. God doesn't ask you to agree with it. There are several things in here I'd like to change. Could we make a tithe 5% or 2%? Can I negotiate this with you, God? He doesn't negotiate. It doesn't matter whether I agree with this book or not. It doesn't matter. We are bound by this book. If we are a follower of Christ, if we said, yes, I'm accepting this free gift of salvation, I'm going to live for you out of gratitude for that, and this book is what I'm going to live by. This is not optional. And here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about some of you in here who think that you're a follower of Christ, but you say, well, there's some of this stuff, this living together stuff and sexuality and all the stuff that God lays out in here, I'm just not sure I'm down with this. If you don't live according to this book, I'm not sure you're saved. I'm not sure you're not going to hell. And there are a lot of people that come into church every week and they think that they're going to be saved. They think they're going to be, living on the new earth with Jesus. But I don't love this book. I don't agree with this. It contradicts itself. There's all kinds of problems with it. No. You don't get to have it two different ways. You love Jesus, you love his book. You live by his book. Are we clear about that? And here's the really difficult part. In the hard moments of life, we still live by this book. When we're tempted by economics or by what's expedient or what's okay, we still live by this book. We still do it in the hard moments. Okay, I'm going to lighten up now. Principle 2. Choose your words carefully, especially in the hard moments. So Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year it was the same. Peninnah would taunt her as they went to the tabernacle. Each time Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. Peninnah is taunting her, degrading her, making her life a living hell. And Hannah never fires back at all, even when she's at a breaking point. She cries, but she doesn't ever fire back. Let me bring you down to real life here. This is what this is like. Okay, suppose you and your family were loading up to go to Passion in Atlanta. You're going to hear Louis Giglio and the Passion Band, and you're pumped up. You're going to well, it's not the Georgia Dome anymore, but you're going to the Falcon Stadium. And you get in the minivan, and it's Elkanah, and it's Hannah and Peninnah, and the 5 kids, all of which are Peninnah's. So the whole way down there, Peninnah's saying, "Hey, where's your kids? What's the matter with you? I got food for all my kids. You get a smaller portion because you don't have any kids." All the way down there, 5 hours to Atlanta. That's what this is like. It's 20 miles to Shiloh from where this family lived. But she took it. And she took it not only, she took all the taunts and all that stuff, not only just on the travel up there, but she probably took it day to day. Now, they lived in separate tents in the same area, but they would, she would still taunt her. Hannah would still be taunted when they did like household duties, like picking up, fetching water and washing clothes and all that stuff and meal times and stuff. She heard it all the time. And Hannah didn't say a word. Hannah didn't say anything. So what do we need to learn from this one? And here's the other thing. When Hannah's in the temple and Eli, the priest, the so-called priest, is accusing her of being drunk, she didn't even go off on him. She just gives him a very measured, quiet, mannerly response that says, "No, sir, I'm not drunk. I'm talking to God." Her heart is breaking, yet she somehow restrains herself. This is a huge concept we have to grab hold of in our world today. We are forever popping off emotionally to each other. When we're hurt, when we're injured, we do it on social media. We do it in our workplaces. We do it in our homes. And we do it to and with the most important people in our lives, our families, our friends, and our loved ones. We vomit all over each other emotionally all the time, and it is killing us. Watch this video.
Henry, come quickly, it's Jocko.
Jocko, what's going on with you, buddy? Don't be scared. Everything's gonna be fine. Just stay calm. All right. Willie, I don't need you to see this. Get out of here now. Okay, check the temperature of the pool. Go, hurry. Alexa, what are you doing? I meant check the thermometer. Give me a hand. Let's go. I need you to get me 2 fish from the barrel now.
Okay.
Just hang in there.
Here.
It's gonna be all right. That's a little warm. Go to the bottom of the barrel, please. Okay, there. That's good. Thank you. Come on, buddy. Take it. Take
He's
it.
not his like
I know, Alexa. Sorry I smacked you with that. You needed the fish slap to calm down. Do you understand?
Yes.
Are you calm?
Yes, fish like coming.
Okay, now, I'm gonna try to get him breathing manually, okay? So I need your face right next to his mouth to see if it's working. Are you ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3!
Not yet. Not yet.
All right. We're gonna try one more time. If it doesn't work, we'll perform an emergency tracheotomy. We don't want to do that, so let's pray this works. 1 more to 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh! Yikes. That's a lot of vomit.
This is why I got into this business. To save sea animals.
You should go wash yourself off, okay? Maybe try some turpentine. That might take the stink away.
Hopefully nobody in here needs a fish slap. Anybody need a fish slap? You good? Back when my oldest, Spencer, he was a baby, he had trouble with all kinds of formulas. Some of you moms and dads have been through that. And there's this thing called projectile vomiting. Like if something doesn't agree with the baby's stomach, man, son, I remember several times where it would just come out, I'd get hit in the face. Everywhere else it'd be on the walls, on the floors. Everywhere else, some of your mamas are just, yes, I've been there and done that. But here's the thing, man. You cannot get that stuff up. It's everywhere. It sticks to walls and it smells. It's got that disgusting smell that you know the smell if you've been there. You can't get it. Just never goes away. Can I tell you something? Men and women, ladies, gentlemen, some of you are exercise such a lack of care in your words that you don't understand that there are things that you say that hang in the air for 5, 10, or 15 years. And you can never clean it up. The smell is still with you today. I would just beg you, choose your words carefully, especially in the hardest moments of life. Do that. And so, but also, when you're angry and you're hurt, especially, take a walk, take a break, put down your phone, get off Twitter, get off Facebook. Do not text, post, or speak in anger. You know the people that are on that video, the spectators at the zoo? That's what it's like to be on Twitter when somebody's vomiting up emotionally on there. You're just going, no, please, no. Don't do it. Don't do it. I can't believe you're doing that. Don't do it. Take time to choose your words so that you will heal and not hurt. And sometimes when there's a no-win situation, you say nothing at all. You just cry out to God. That's the best thing to do. A couple of years back, I went through a really, really difficult time in my life for about a whole year, for an entire year. And I really, if you know me at all, I like to win. I like to convince you that you're wrong and I'm right, and I'll keep talking until I just make a mess of things, make a bigger mess of things. But when I was in this situation, I did something smart for once, and I went to God and I said, what do you got for me? How do I win this argument? And I got what I didn't expect from God. He said, I need you to be quiet. I need you to be quiet. I need you to try not to win. I need you not to make a spectacle of yourself. I need you to be quiet. And I need you to let me take care of this. What did I learn? God didn't right every wrong I thought had been done to me. But He healed me. And He changed me. He changed some things that really needed to be changed. And He also changed some other things in the situation I was dealing with that needed to be changed as well. And you know what? I didn't do one thing about it. I just let Him work, and I shut my pie hole. We got to learn to do that. I've got to learn to do that. You've got to learn to do that. And when you don't, do this for me. Be careful with your words to your spouse. Be careful with the words to your children. And be careful with the words you speak to your parents. You don't ever get them back. And they wound and they hurt. And here's the other thing. In your workplace, there are people in your workplace that are lost. Be careful with the words you speak to your coworkers. They don't know, some of them don't know Jesus. Be careful with the words you speak to them. Last thing here. In Ephesians 4:14-15, Paul asks us to do something really hard. It says, speak the truth in love. He's writing to the church at Ephesus. It says, we will no longer be immature like children. Instead, we will speak the truth in love, always in love. That's one of the hardest things to do in life. But that's what God's called us to do, to uphold His standard, but to also think about how we can express the truth in love. In your family, in your school, wherever you are, speak the truth in love. But sometimes you don't need to say anything. Sometimes you need to speak directly to the living God. Principle 3. Carrying on what Phil talked about last week. Pray big and bold, especially in the hard moments. And I hope you are continuing to pray at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. for you, for the big things in your life, but also for our church, for the Bridge Fellowship. I hope that you will continue doing that. Make sure your alarm's still set and do that. So what does it say here? It says, Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. And she made this vow, O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I'll give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime, and as a sign, he has been dedicated to the Lord. His hair will never be cut. In lots of ways, what Hannah is talking about here is a model prayer for us. It's a model. And think about this. This is a lady who is living out in a rural territory, who's in anguish because she can't have children, and yet God uses her not only to give us a model prayer today, but he also uses her to create salvation for all of his people and to change history. Watch what she does here. She's crying bitterly. She's in deep anguish. She brings her pain to God, not to anybody else. She sits at the feet of the living God and cries out only to him. Notice how she talks to him. She uses the Hebrew word Sabaoth, and that means Lord of hosts, Lord of the angel armies. It's the first time in Scripture it is ever used, is in this passage. And 300 times afterwards in the Bible, it is picked up and used. It's almost like God said, I like this. I like this young woman. Let's go with this. What does that mean? What does Sabaoth mean? The Lord who put all of the stars in the sky. The host of all the stars. The host of all of the armies of angels that can change history in a moment. That's who you are. So she's speaking out of deep respect and reverence to God. But she's also speaking very emotionally. Eli thinks that she's drunk. She's not drunk. Eli's just deluded because he's got two sons who are wannabe priests, who are drunks. Phil's going to talk about that next week. And so he doesn't know what it really means to have a fervent prayer, somebody really praying in a real emotional way where they're really speaking out to God. He doesn't know what that looks like because he has gotten off track as a priest. And just so you know, pastors and their families, we don't have it all together, just so you know. And Eli is a great example of that because he's got two drunks for sons who are allegedly priests. And so he's missing the point here. He doesn't see a woman who's sold out to God, who's asking him to answer a prayer because he's so worried about what his sons are doing or not doing. But what does she do? She speaks to him in total respect and awe and with total freedom and emotionally to him about all of her deepest needs. And I want you to know that that's how God wants us to speak to him. He doesn't want some kind of churchy prayer that's made up and that sounds good. He wants us to speak out of our deepest emotional need, out of the raw, out of respect, but also exactly for what we need. That's how he wants us to talk to him. This is a model prayer. I think it's important here to understand that she is speaking the God of the angel armies language here. Because this is the same God who's going to give his son away for our salvation. He's going to change history by giving his son away, just like Hannah is going to give her son away. One of the reasons that he connects so well with Hannah right here is because he speaks her language. He's willing to do anything to save his people, including giving his son Jesus away. So what happens here? There's a lot of great history that starts right here. Samuel is Hannah's son who's born out of this prayer. It didn't happen immediately. We don't know exact timeline, but God answered Hannah's prayer. And Samuel's name is literally, it means heard by God. He becomes the last judge of Israel and becomes the first prophet of Israel. He becomes a key part of God's plan to save his people. And I don't want you to miss this. Okay, so we got a dysfunctional family where a dude makes all the wrong decisions and messes up his family. And somehow God uses this whole dysfunction and all this stuff to rearrange history and to change history and to bring about Jesus Christ. You don't have to be perfect. You have to be sold out to God. You have to be willing to to allow Jesus to change the course of your life. And he will change the course of your life, and he'll change history through you if you will let him guide the plan. You got to live by his standard, though, right? And if you know you're not living in his standard, get on board today. He changes history. So what does it say that what happened to Hannah? It says this. It's a little strange little verse. Then she went back. She went back to her family, back to the abuse, back to all the crap that she's got to deal with. She went back and she began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. This is kind of strange because Samuel was not born yet when all this happened. So what exactly was happening there? Why did everything change? She had an encounter with the living God. And no one is ever the same when they encounter God in a real and authentic way. They're never the same. And here's the other thing. She knew that he was going to answer. That's why she was changed. She knew that God was going to answer her prayer. Now, she didn't know what the answer was going to be. The answer could have been, no, can't do it. The answer could have been, wait 20 years. There could have been and the answer could have been no. But she was confident that God had heard her prayer. And so that changed everything in her life. She went from sadness to joy and willingness to go back into the fight with her family. Everything changed because she had an encounter with God.